One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Geico makes it easy to get affordable renter's insurance in as little as 90 seconds. And then you'll start to wonder why everything else isn't so fast. Like, why does it take so long to do the dishes? A meal that's gone in 3 requires 45 minutes worth of dishes. Doesn't make sense. But it does make sense to get renter's insurance through Geico. That way, that pile of dirty dishes and the other things you love are covered. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 252 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Rivian R1T, the Kia Stinger, driving the GM Lunar Rover in a simulator, the Ford Bronco Sport, the Ford Bronco Raptor, the Cadillac Celistiq, and a lot of listener questions. All that and more coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. This is episode 252 of Wheel Bearings. I am Sam Abuel-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeland from the Fast Women podcast.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from Ars Technica.
And Roberto, what have you been driving?
So I want to finish up really quickly. The Kia Stinger is awesome. It's just this great little 4-door sport sedan. I really liked it. Just kind of following up on last.
You could kind of call it a 5-door because there's a hatchback too.
It is a hatchback, yes. So it makes it better. Hatchbacks are always better because you can put more stuff in the back. It's a great little car. You should go out and buy one if you're looking for, or at least not buy one. Okay, it should be on your list if you're looking for sort of sporty, fun sedans that you can put people in the back and you're not.
You should investigate the possibility.
If it's the right vehicle for you. But it's priced right. It's fun to drive. It's it continues on the whole Hyundai motor companies or motor groups domination of things that it wants to do, and it just sort of does it, and you're like, wow, this is really nice. So yeah, just Hyundai and Kia, just look at their stuff. That's
it's got such a cool name.
Stinger. Yeah, it's like a little bee or something. Hyundai Stinger or Hyundai Stinger, Kia Stinger. Might as well say Hyundai. Why not? Kia Stinger.
It has,
it might. It very much has like a '60s, hot rod name, the Stinger.
Yeah,
it's got a little bee.
It's like, was it a 4-cylinder or V6 you had?
V6.
Okay,
it was pretty dope. And then let's talk about what I did after that. I drove the GM Lunar Rover on the moon, sort of, kind of, in a simulator in Milford. So
you did it just the way the Apollo astronauts did in the 60s then, right?
Yep, I just got on the moon. It turns out like whenever they did the original Lunar Rovers and they tested them here on Earth, when they got to the moon, all that information they got from driving around Earth was completely worthless because the moon is different. So they knew there's less gravity, but there's also this sort of like silt, sharp, stabby, electrostatically charged dust on the moon that's full of like metal and glass. It's essentially just asteroid bits, and it sticks to everything. Hey, when you get like what's the bit like packing peanuts?
Mm-hmm.
You put your hand in the packing peanut. Yeah, and it just sticks to your arms, and it's like that, except it's sharp, stabby moon dust.
Yeah.
So that's the thing they have to deal with while they're driving around in 1/6 gravity. Um, it was really fun. It was really weird though, because you don't quite because it's everything's gray. It's hard to have depth perception, and this is what they actually found this out from actual astronauts who went to the moon. Is like, because everything's the same color, like your depth perception is sort of is limited, because in here on Earth, like, oh, I can look out my window, I'm like, there's a brown thing and a green thing and a blue thing and this and that, and then stereoscopic vision, you kind of like, oh, these are closer, these are further. When you're on the moon, everything's just gray, just shades of gray. And it's really just like 2 or 3 shades, because of the sun and whatnot.
It's like trying to go skiing on an overcast day and everything's
Yeah,
white, and you can't really see the contour of the snow.
yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what it's like. And you don't have the special, you have just regular goggles, as opposed to, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. Where you're like, I don't know. Oh God.
Oh, there's moguls there. I didn't see
Oh
that.
gosh, I didn't see those.
I
Yeah,
was
it's
not
exactly.
expecting that.
That's a perfect. I should have used that in my article. Oh well, too late. It's live. Sorry.
Too late now.
Too late now. Yeah, no, it was a cool experience. They're working with Lockheed. They want to get this thing up on the moon before humans. They want it to be a level 5 autonomous vehicle. It'll drive around. It'll map out the
Well, technically,
area.
it can't be on the moon before humans because we've already been there.
Well, recently.
Well,
I
before
mean-
the next batch of humans.
But
I
for the
mean, we
next batch
have
of-
been there once.
We got there that way.
so you
a couple
say.
times.
But
That's
for
not
all
what.
we know, they were.
Do we
they could
really
have been
know?
in a simulator.
That's not
Oh
what Stanley
my
Kubrick
God.
told me on his deathbed. Before the next batch
All
of
green
humans, before the next batch of humans make it up to the moon, they want this thing up there going around, mapping, looking around, and then that way, when the humans do get there, the vehicle's found like some interesting spots. It's essentially a scout. It goes up there, it figures out like, hey, there's an interesting thing. How about we go here, instead of having the humans when they get there being like, let's just drive around and figure it out. The vehicle will
in
drive
circles.
around and figure it out. It's like when you go visit a family member who lives in a really cool city. You don't have to drive around and figure things out. Your family member just tells you, oh no, go here, go there, go here, go there. Yeah, don't go to that thing. It sucks. That's essentially what the Lunar Rover wants to do. They talked about how all the things they have to figure out, like wheels, tire. You can't put air because it's a vacuum. They're going to be electric vehicles with batteries. It's going to be based on Ultium. They would not tell me really anything. They wouldn't tell me how much range it'll have. They wouldn't tell me how quickly it would charge. They didn't tell me
Are they still going to use lawn chairs for the seats?
No, they probably won't use lawn chairs for the seats. They showed us a bunch of designs of what the different types of seats, because you have to take into account the backpacks, the things that keep the astronauts alive, and then the egress and getting in and out of the Lunar Rover, like when you get in, like, you don't want that backpack to hit things, and then figuring out how to make it go. So they're like, oh, well, maybe instead of like an accelerator and a brake, because you can't really feel anything because your boots are way bigger than like your shoe size to keep you from dying on the moon. So you can't feel anything. So they're like, well, why don't we make it, like hand controls, like maybe like a motorcycle or something. And then they talked about haptic feedback within the gloves, because you can't feel anything. You're just like,
Oh, so if you've actually squeezed things,
Yeah,
and,
so you know
so you know
things.
that you've connected.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
think about
yeah.
that, but yeah, in those giant gloves, you'd have no idea that you actually engaged what you thought you engaged. Like, have I squeezed it?
But
And you go
if
flying.
it's L5 autonomous, do you even really need any of that? Can't you just tell
Well,
it where to
no,
go?
you totally
They
do, because
still want people to drive at some. They still want to give people the opportunity to drive, because when you get to the moon, you're gonna want to drive around.
see, and I have a more logical answer that when the autonomous technology fails because the aliens on the moon get pissed off because we're there, you're going to need a human to take over and properly pilot that vehicle. I'm just saying,
Okay.
you don't want it all in the hands of technology. You want to be able to take over when the aliens show up.
Yep, you want to
Fair
be able
enough.
to take over.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, and the one that they've been showing, it looks kind of like a pickup truck. That's like where they are right now, but they're still evolving the design. They showed us some designs that we weren't allowed to take photos of, where they've moved the solar panel up to the top of the vehicle, so it doesn't have that electrostatically charged dust essentially sticking to the panels, and of course reducing the amount of sunlight and reducing the charge rate. So they would put it on top and they put like sides on it. And so super, yeah, it was really fun. It was cool. And they, they talked about how building the Hummer EV like sort of helped them work on this, which is, yeah, sure.
Well,
I know, I think, it's the same
hopefully
team.
they
Like,
learned
it's
a
like,
lesson from the Hummer and didn't make it quite so heavy, because it costs a lot of money to per pound to lift stuff from Earth to the moon.
To
Yeah.
shoot stuff into space.
yes, yeah, you have to take like all these things into account. And I talked to them about, they want to be, so you can work on it while it's on the moon. And I asked them whether or not, like, well, let's say this thing's on the moon for a few years, and now you have the battery, and now you want to like swap the battery out, and maybe you can use that battery for the lunar colony for another use case where it's not as, using batteries for cars is actually pretty hardcore for the battery. So when you put that battery in your house, it'll last way longer than it would in your car. So it doesn't have to be like pristine. And they're like, oh yeah, we're kind of investigating that, but they are like making sure that people can work on things on the moon. So you can like take things apart and fix it and fix your lunar, your whip, your moon whip,
Your lunar whip.
your lunar whip. Yeah, and of course, driving in the DIL, the driver in the loop simulator is always fun, especially because they have to make it so it's like 1/6 gravity. And they wouldn't.
That must be.
Yeah, it was really weird. It
challenge.
was really weird. Yeah, they're like, yeah, it's hard to like sort of determine like where, like how, because of that and the depth perception, all these other things, like you're hitting a crater and you're like, wait, what, am I going to? Oh God, I'm in the air.
Went a little too fast.
But think of the air you could get on the moon. I mean, just saying.
And they had like a 1 kilometer square area like that we could drive around on that they had mapped out from the moon. And there was this one giant crater, and I was just about to drive into it. They're like, "Please don't do that. we're gonna veto that." There's one.
We'll have to do a Control-Alt-Delete if you. Try
and it takes 5 minutes to restart the whole thing, and there's other people, and if I was last, they would let me do it. Tim Stevens was last, and he was about to do it, and then he hit like another crater, and it like threw his.
Oh
jeez. Yeah, he's just like all of a sudden, oh no, here's another crater, like a little tiny, like itty bitty one. He was going for the big one, and it like threw his little lunar rover all over the place,
module everywhere.
And they had to reset the system. And they're like, yeah, you can go for that. They're like, yeah, he's gonna do it. I was like, oh, never mind.
Can you imagine the chaos if they really just put a bunch of automotive journalists in charge of actually doing that stuff and be like, I can take that, I can take it.
I'll drive it.
$1 billion piece.
That would be
equipment.
one hell of a press junket if they
Right?
sent us all to the moon.
There you go. You're on the moon. Here's your press junket.
We only get to stay there for 18 hours.
Yeah, you might be.
Spend 7 days going back and
Getting
forth,
there.
but you only get to spend 18 hours on the surface.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have a lunch, and it's gonna be the exact same lunch.
Chicken, fish, or beef.
Chicken, fish, or beef on the moon.
On the moon, people.
On every Instagram would be, I mean, fish on the moon. I'm having some moon chicken. So yeah, no, it was really fun. It was really cool. They're working with Lockheed Martin. They've been sending stuff up into space forever. Aerospace company. GM built the first lunar rover, so they sort of know what they're doing. They have that, and of course they have the Ultium system. So yeah, I'm excited. Oh, and this is all for the Artemis, international essentially moon trip that they're gonna do. Where
they might even launch one of those soon.
Yeah. So it'll be going
one.
to them. It'll be interesting what you do on the moon. Or whalers on the moon. That's all I could do the whole time was that Futurama song. But yeah, that's me driving on the moon, sort of.
Sort of, kind of, as close as you can come.
Close as I'll ever be able to drive on the moon. That was me.
All right, Nicole.
Me.
Yes, your turn.
Okay, I'm all Ford Bronco all the time, apparently forever. So much like I had
Or
a
at
run
least
of
this week.
Well, much I had a run like there was Hyundai drive program, Hyundai. I'm doing the same thing with the cars I have at home and the cars that I'm going to drive or have just driven. So the car that was in my driveway was the Ford Bronco Sport, which is the baby Bronco. It's not the same as the Bronco. The Bronco, it's not just like a separate
It
trim.
sort of kind of looks like a Bronco, but it's not really a Bronco.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then people are like, oh, is that a Bronco? You're like, it's a Bronco Sport.
So like, don't get it. It's not like one of those things where it's like the Bronco Sport trim. No, the Bronco Sport is its own separate little vehicle, and it still has. I mean, it can do some off-roading. It's not a wimpy vehicle. They drove a bunch of them on the Rebelle Rally when this first came out, and they all survived. They all made it to the end. So I mean, it can go off-road, but it's still not a Bronco. It is not as off-road hardcore in your face, and the doors don't come off and all that kind of stuff. So it's like Bronco Light.
It's what a Ford Escape would want to be when it grows up.
When you just gave the Ford Escape some steroids, like
yes,
it's a better Ford Escape, is what
it is a better Ford Escape. So Bronco Sport, that's what I had this week in my driveway. This one has a 1.5 liter engine. There's 181 horsepower, 190 pound-feet of torque. It moves along just fine. It's nice and comfortable. It has. I love it. Not every most crossovers don't do this, but the tailgate glass opens separately from the tailgate. So you can lift the whole thing at once, or you can just like pop the glass open and put stuff inside, which I actually think is kind of cool. I wish
hang your
more
surfboard out the back.
Yeah, just let your stuff hang out the back of the car. I just like it for if you just want to toss something in, you don't have to okay, it's a small thing. I need to put it in the back. And instead of waiting the whole thing to go up, you put the thing in, it's still going up. Now you have to wait to take the whole thing down. It's just like pop the glass, put it in, and shut the glass. So driving it is a lot like driving like a crossover. It doesn't feel like an off-road vehicle. Like the Bronco feels like you're going off-road. The Bronco Sport feels like you're going to the office. And I guess that's a good thing because not everybody wants to have that really harsh off-road kind of drive to it. It has a really cute interior. I had the Outer Banks edition, so it has its own little look to it, but still has that sort of rugged interior that it's attractive and it's nicely done, but it feels like it could stand up to a little wear and tear. It's not overly fancy pants. I enjoyed driving this. It was a switch after, like I said, having been in the actual Bronco that we went off-road near our house the weekend before to getting into the Bronco Sport. So I had this very direct, like a week in one, a week in the other kind of comparison. And I like the Bronco Sport. I think it's, for someone who really likes the Bronco name too. I mean, there's something to the name. People love the Bronco, right? When it was coming back, it was like Bronco, 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 Bronco's back. But maybe you don't need all that. Maybe you don't need quite that much over the top capability. You can still do a heck of a lot in this. It still has, it's still four-wheel drive. It does Bronco stuff, but it just doesn't have quite the ruggedness. And I think it's way, way, way more well-mannered on the road. If you have to drive a lot on the highway, you want to get yourself a Bronco Sport unless your off-highway plans are like crazy out of control, because it's just so nice to drive on the highway. It's quieter, it handles better, it's just smoother. So I think it's a good it's what most people actually need. Most people don't really need a Bronco, even if they do a little light off-roading, but probably everyone can get a little something out of the fact that they have a Bronco Sport. So I like the Bronco Sport.
And it uses a lot fewer $5 gallons of gas.
It does use a lot fewer $5 a gallon.
Look at you fancy guys.
I know. What are you up to this week? We just crossed 5 and we're kind of holding right over 5 in New Hampshire.
We're like high 6s right now.
Are you really high 6s?
Mid to high 6s.
We're 529 for regular here.
I paid $631 to drive a U-Haul.
Oh God.
$631 a gallon. And I was like,
a
oh, that's the
lot.
cheapest one I could find.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so
well, we're not paying that much. And what you won't pay as much for this. The base Bronco Sport is $28,565. The one I had, there's four trims, I think 4 altogether. The one that I had, which is the Outer Banks, is $34,200. So it's still a relatively affordable vehicle. You're not gonna go broke trying to put this Bronco in your driveway. So that's another.
Assuming you can find one at Sticker.
Well, don't get bogged down in the reality of our terrible world today, Sam. But yes, if you were to find one at Sticker, but even so, if you were to find a Bronco, same thing. Regular Bronco is going to cost more. Bronco Sport's going to cost more. Everything's going to cost more.
But, I think Ford, did a really good job with the Bronco Sport. You can't take off the doors and the roof and everything like you can with the big Bronco. But, they did a lot of thoughtful stuff, for people that are going to use this for, not necessarily, going down the Rubicon Trail, but, going down a trail to their cabin or, going, places, where they're going to do stuff, with a kayak or a paddleboard or their mountain bikes. And like one of the cool details is in the design. It's got that stepped roof design, and they explained the reason why they did that stepped roof is to give enough clearance so that you can store two, with the back seats folded down, you can store two bikes inside, and they have an available accessory bike rack that goes inside. You take the front wheels off and stick them inside, and you can leave them locked up in there so they're not hanging out the back where they're going to get stolen.
Right. Yeah, it's a good, like I said, it's a good choice for most people because I know off-roading is huge and people like to do it, but even most people that do, most of the people who off-road aren't doing this hardcore craziness. You need a little bit of ruggedness to do your outdoorsy thing for your mountain bikes, for your stuff. If you're going, kayaking, or if you're going, for a hike, or if you're going camping, that does not require a Ford Bronco to get to that level of outdoor accessibility. You can do that in something that's still rugged, but doesn't have the negatives that come along with that. And the Bronco Sport does it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
All right. I had two electric pickup trucks. So 2022 is apparently the year of the electric pickup truck. They finally arrived. Neither of them, shockingly, were Lordstown Endurances. So I don't know what I did wrong.
Wow, that's so weird.
It's amazing. Yeah. No, I had the F-150 Lightning and the Rivian R1T at the same time. At least for a few days, so they overlapped, and both of the R1T they sort of started deliveries last fall. They started production in September of last year, but really I think most of the first 1,500 of them went to Rivian employees. It didn't really go to outside customers very much, or maybe a handful did. And they're finally starting to deliver more of them to customers now. And then, Ford in late May started delivering the Lightnings to customers as well. They had a couple hundred deliveries in May, and I suspect when we see the June numbers, that will probably jump to at least a couple of thousand, if not more than that. So these two trucks, it's funny, they're both four-door crew cab pickup trucks that kind of are shaped like what you expect a pickup truck to be shaped like, unlike a certain other stainless steel thing that doesn't truly exist.
There's one.
Yet.
Well, there's two, I think.
There's at least two.
Yeah,
maybe there's possibly four.
Could be.
mean, the other two might not run, but there's possibly four. I would think there's four.
Details, Robbie.
Anyway,
details.
These are shaped like pickup trucks. So you've got the front box, where traditionally the engine would sit. You've got the cab where the driver and passengers sit, and a bed in the back. So it looks like a truck, but they are aimed at very different customers. They're not really direct competitors for each other. The F-150 is a classic full-size American pickup truck. It's very clearly designed to appeal to people who buy F-150s and Silverados and Rams. and Tundras and the occasional Titan. There, while there will undoubtedly be people that are new to trucks, that might have previously considered some other electric brand, I think most of the people that are going to be interested in this are people who would otherwise buy a gas or maybe a diesel engine pickup truck. The Rivian, on the other hand, is smaller. It's a mid-sized truck. It's 16 inches shorter than the F-150, and the height, even though the Rivian has a four-wheel air spring suspension that can lift it up in off-road mode, so you have 15 inches of ground clearance. Even in off-road mode, it's 78.3 inches tall, whereas the cab of the Lightning, which doesn't go up and down, doesn't have air springs, is 78.9 inches. So it's shorter even in off-road mode. And in its normal driving mode and sport mode, it's only 73 inches tall. So it's almost 6 inches shorter than the Lightning, or lower than the Lightning. And it's narrower. It's the Rivian is almost exactly the same dimensions as a Jeep Gladiator. And I think the Gladiator is really probably the most direct competitive set to the R1T. That's, the same customer that's going to be interested in a Gladiator is, I think, the one that's going to be interested in the Rivian. And then in the case of the R1S, the SUV, that's going to be targeted at the likes of Grand Cherokee, maybe Range Rover Discovery, something like that. Real off-road capability, but also more premium feeling, and it's a higher end customer, a lifestyle customer, as opposed to the more utilitarian customer typical of an F-150. But both have almost the same size battery. The Ford is 131 kilowatt hours, 135 in the Rivian. They have similar range. The one that I drove was a launch edition, so that's a quad motor, all-wheel drive with what Rivian calls their large pack. That's the 135. That's actually their mid-size pack. That one is rated at 314 miles of range. The F-150 with the extended range battery is 320 miles if you get the XLT or the Lariat with the 20-inch wheels. The Platinum that I drove is with 22-inch wheels is 300 miles of range. In my time driving the two of them, both of them got almost exactly the same efficiency, about 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour. The Rivian is quicker. It's 835 horsepower and a little over 900 foot-pounds of torque from its four motors, one driving each wheel. The F-150's only got two motors, 580 horsepower and 775 foot-pounds of torque. Both are ridiculously quick for a pickup truck. The Rivian in particular, almost down to 3 seconds for the for 0 to 60, and just over 4 seconds for the F-150. Both more than quick enough for anything you're ever going to want to do. The Rivian has a significantly smaller bed. It's shorter. It's only 4.5 foot long bed versus a 5.5 foot long bed in the Ford. And the Ford's bed is also wider than the Rivian's bed. And the front trunk is also smaller in the Rivian. But the Rivian has the added storage of that gear tunnel that goes underneath.
Gear tunnel.
The
Which is
one
so
they
cool.
sent me did not come with the camp kitchen, unfortunately, so I didn't get to test
The
that
camp
out.
kitchen is insane. It's $5,000.
Yeah, I know.
Just go buy
It's a kitchen in your truck,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
It
just
rolls
go
out
buy
on
a
a little
little
thing. No, you
Coleman
want
thing.
the rollouty
Yeah.
thingy.
Actually,
one of the
that's what I should have done is just pull out my Coleman propane
Shoved
camp
it into the
stove
tunnel.
And you can stand on the doors that open.
Yeah.
You can stand
And
on.
I
so you
stood
can-
on it. And
Yes.
it held me. It
Survey.
didn't break.
You survey the land.
Yeah. The F1, both of them. The F-150 comes standard with a full size spare tire, and it's the spare in the F-150 is in the traditional place you would find it in a pickup truck, which is hanging under the back end of the bed. So you stick your tire iron in there and you crank it down if you need to use the spare. The Rivian spare, there's a well underneath the bed floor. Not dissimilar to kind of the rear trunk that they have in the Honda Ridgeline, but shaped differently, so it accommodates a spare in there. The spare is optional on the Rivian. It's like an $875 option, but if you are actually going to use this as an off-road vehicle, you absolutely want to get the spare. You don't want to go off-roading without a spare tire.
Spare tire.
And
we blew a tire in the Hummer EV truck drive.
Oh yeah, I remember you.
Oh,
told
did
us
you?
about that,
yeah, the left tire it debeated.
Yeah,
debeated.
So unlike the Hummer, the spare is concealed. It's out of the way. It's not consuming the space of your bed like the Hummer does.
Mm-hmm.
But and this is one of the another one of the big differences between these two trucks. The Rivian, with its air spring suspension, when you put it in off-road mode, it lifts up and gives you up to 15 inches of ground clearance. Whereas there's no air spring suspension. The ground clearance on the Lightning is only 8.9 inches, which is fine for what most people are going to use the truck for. The overhangs are a little longer, so the approach and departure angles and the breakover angle on the Ford are not as good as the Lightning or as the Rivian. So if what you want to do is go off-roading, the Rivian is your better choice. Serious off-roading. If what you want to do is use it for truck stuff, the Rivian will do most of the truck stuff that most people want to do, but the Ford may be a better choice for you, and especially if you're going to use it for work, the Ford is probably a better option for you.
The Rivian R1T is what the Honda Ridgeline should have been as an EV. That's
absolutely.
Like I was driving it around, I was like, oh, this is what Honda should have built.
Yeah,
but they didn't.
And one other thing that was a little disappointing with the Rivian, and the Ford, what would normally be the grille on the F-150 is attached to the hood. So when you open the hood, it goes up, and you have a relatively low, comparatively low lift over. It's not low compared to a car.
You're gonna jump it. You're gonna throw it over the grill. You just gotta get it up to the bumper. That's all you gotta do.
You can put stuff in there a lot easier. You don't have to lift it up over the top to drop it into the front trunk, as you would with the Rivian, because the Rivian, the front fascia is static. It stays where it is. So that can be a little bit more annoying. But the Rivian does also have a drain plug in the bottom, just like the F-150 does. The interiors. F-150, the Lightning interior, if you've been in any modern F-150, you will, aside from the 15.5-inch screen, you will be immediately familiar with it. Everything is in the same place. The on-off switch, the start-stop button, all the other controls are exactly where they are in any current generation F-150 or any previous generation F-150, except you have the bigger screen. The Rivian has gone more the direction of Tesla with minimalist. There's no buttons, no switches, except for the two stalks on the steering column, and then the roller and rocker switches on the steering wheel spokes, which are multifunction. Which what they do depends on what mode you're in, which I frankly find a little annoying because you're never quite sure exactly what they're going to do.
I'm with you. That always messes me up. I'm like, wait, what is it doing right now?
Yeah. They don't like the Jaguar or the JLRs. Like in the Land Rover, it would change to a different thing. Or
it'll actually show you a different icon.
It'll show you a different icon. It doesn't do that in the Rivian.
Yeah, so there's no labeling in the Rivian. The screen, the big center screen is it's nice. It's bright, easy to read. It was a little. The interface was a little wonky sometimes. Most of the time it was fine, but every once in a while it would lag, especially when you switch to navigation mode and it's loading up the maps. That was probably the biggest issue I had there. But it does have another display in front of the driver for instruments. Using the Driver Plus ADAS system, the Rivian has 11 cameras on the outside plus 5 radars, so same number of radars as the Ford. But it's got 11 more cameras on the outside, but it doesn't currently support hands-free driving mode. And even with the hands-on mode, I could, drive using that on the highway, I could feel it wandering more within the lane. It doesn't do as good a job staying in the center of the lane as the Ford did. And even the Ford, frankly, doesn't do it quite as well as GM does. But the Ford, the Ford you can do hands-free. Works, mostly stays pretty close to the center of the lane. The Rivian definitely felt like it was wandering a lot more, and sometimes on some curves, would start to drift out of the curve, and so you'd have to crank in a little more steering. So Rivian's definitely got more work to do on their ADAS stuff. The Rivian is not quite as quiet in highway driving as the Ford. The Ford was amazingly quiet for an F-150. Very little wind noise, very little road noise coming through. On the Rivian, you've got all-terrain tires, so those are obviously going to be louder. So there was more noise coming through. What else? Overall, they're both fantastic trucks, for their own purposes. Pricing, the Ford starts at $40,000 for the standard range version, but they're all four-wheel drive. They're all dual motor. So the standard range Pro starts at $40,000. The Platinum that I was driving was like 93 and change, including delivery. And that's loaded. That's got all the stuff you're ever going to want on there. And apparently, according to customer reports and confirmed by Ford, if you buy a Lightning, you get they include a CCS to Tesla adapter on there. So if you spot a Tesla driver that's out of juice, you can stop off and give them a hand. I actually did plug in the Rivian into the.
Oh my gosh! I thought you were going to say you actually charged up a Tesla. I was like, what?
I did not find a Tesla to charge, but I did use the Rivian and charged it up, just to see. Yes, it does work. I didn't have the 240 volt outlet that's in the Ford is not the standard. It's not an NEMA 1450, which you just plug it in. It's just got the straight slots. It's a different one that they use on a lot of high power tools, where you put it in. You have to plug it in and then turn it to lock. And I didn't have the right adapter for that to charge the Rivian at 240 volts. So I was just charging it from one of the 120 volt outlets, but it was cranking along at about 1.5, 1.6 kilowatts. So that worked out well. So I was daisy chained from my 9.6 kilowatt charger plugged into the Ford, which was then plugged in using the Rivian power cable, charged and plugged into that. I tried the DC fast charge with both of them. The Ford, went right up to 150 kilowatts. I didn't do a full charge on that, but I just wanted to see what kind of speed I could get out of it. Plugged into a 350 kilowatt charger. It charged at 150 kilowatts, actually slightly over. It was closer to 160. Unfortunately, when I went back with the Rivian, the 350 kilowatt chargers near me were both out of order, so I had to plug into a 150, and it charged at about 144, but on a 350 kilowatt charger, the Rivian should be able to charge at least part of the way at up to 200 kilowatts. But overall, they're going to be pretty similar. The Rivian might charge a little bit faster. The Rivian, again, with its extra ground clearance and its off-road capability, can ford through up to 42, almost 43 inches of water. The Ford is about 24 inches of water. We drove the Lightning, on an off-road trail during the launch program. It's not a really hardcore trail, but it was fairly capable. If you're going to do that, you probably want to get an XLT or Lariat, not the Platinum. So get the 20-inch wheels, and the tires on there are going to be a little more capable off-road than the really strictly on-road tires on the Platinum. And of course, you don't want to scratch up your $90,000 Platinum anyway. What else? I think that's most of it. Later when we get to the Q&A, we got a bunch of questions that people submitted on Twitter, and I'll answer some of those. But the pricing, the other thing, the Rivian pricing. When the launch editions of the R1T were sold, it had a $73,000 price tag. Since then, about a month and a half ago, Rivian realized that they were their parts were costing them way more than they anticipated. They raised the price on the R1T and the R1S by about $12,000. So now the launch editions are sold out. They're gone. And speaking of which, I've actually seen 3 of them in the past week on the road here around the Detroit area. The Adventure, which is the regular one, now starts at $73,000, but that's no longer with the 4-motor configuration and the large pack. That's with a dual motor and the standard range battery pack, which is only 260 miles of range. If you want the large battery, that's going to cost you an extra $6,000. If you want the max battery pack, which isn't yet available, that's coming later this year, for a 400-mile range, that's going to be an extra $16,000. The reinforced underbody shields, another $2,000. The front bumper tow hooks are another $2,000.
Jeez.
And the 4-motor, I don't see what the pricing on that. I think the 4-motor, if you want to go, the dual motor is only a mere 600 horsepower. The 4-motor, I think, is another $6,000 on top of that to get the 800 horsepower. And then the Explorer, which is the base version, also dual motor standard range, starts at $67,500. So that is the pricing, and that's the Rivian versus the Lightning.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
All right.
That's Rivian Lightning.
That's it. That's it. The Rivian versus Lightning.
Yeah. More in the Q&A later. All right. So Nicole.
Yeah.
You had a chance recently to drive yet another Bronco.
Yeah. And the funny thing is I'm driving one tomorrow too. So really it's all Bronco all the time until the end of time. Hyundai's now in the past. We're now about the Ford Bronco. Okay. So this one though, where I went from the regular Bronco down to the Bronco Sport, I'm now going up in the other direction past the regular Bronco to the Bronco Raptor. So the Bronco Raptor, like that means fast, powerful performance, go racing through the desert like a maniac. And they did that to the Bronco, and it's great. It's great. I loved it. So they had us out in Palm Springs where it was roughly 112 degrees, and I felt like my face was going to melt off. It was so hot. And they took us out into the desert, and they gave us a chance to really, like, sometimes these off-road driver programs don't really give you much of a taste of off-roading. This one, we had a very brief on-road section when we first arrived on day one, where we went immediately out, took it on a twisting road, up, through some canyony kind of stuff, up high and then down, back down, and then on some highway, just actual highway. And cars like this, where they're big and beefy and off-roady, sometimes are just miserable to drive on roads like that, especially where there's these sort of swooping turns, because they feel very rolly. And those off-road tires do not like to be driven that way on the pavement. This was incredibly nice and comfortable and easy to drive on those roads. So I was very impressed with its on-roading, which really isn't what you're buying the Bronco Raptor for, but at some point you are going to have to come off the dirt and go to work. When you do, you'll still be able to drive this, and you won't be miserable driving this for a long stretch on the highway. Day two was entirely about taking this into that desert, that 112 degree, why do people live there, desert. So this has a 3-liter V6 with 418 horsepower, 440 pound-feet of torque. It's got a 10-speed automatic transmission. Just think about those numbers for a second. It's powerful. It's not like it's a wimpy little
it's only
vehicle.
half as powerful as the Rivian.
I know, but yes, it is only but I think that this could kick the Rivian's butt off-road. Just going to say that. I think that this would go further, faster, harder, stronger than the Rivian. I feel like you could attempt to beat the ever-living bleep out of this thing, and it's like, meh. Give me something better. Give it your best shot. It's just really, and it starts at $68,500. So yes, pricey, outrageous, not really for
still
a vehicle.
Cheaper than the Rivian.
Exactly.
The base
right.
Rivian.
And this is like a serious off-road vehicle that you're getting unbelievable capability with this. It can ford 37 inches of water. It has 13.1 inches at a minimum of ground clearance. Just as a comparison, the regular 4-door Bronco has 8.3 inches. So it's a big difference from Bronco to Bronco Raptor. The tires, 37-inch tires that are just they're gigantic. They're huge. And it helps improve the approach and departure angles. So again, if you're that hardcore person and you're hardcore off-roader, that's exactly what you want. It still has that goat modes that, what is it, goes over any type of terrain. I think I got that right.
Goes over any terrain,
any terrain, which has like 7 different drive modes. There's a 4 high, 4 low. It has that trail turn assist, which I think is just a really cool feature that Ford has, where it lets you, it feels like you're just pivoting on your, like, say you have a really tight turn and you don't want to just turn and go around it. You almost need to pivot. This kind of lets you do that.
That's
kind of like
exactly what it does.
It lets you pivot around. Now, granted, if you're like in the dirt and the muck and rocks, you're pivoting, but you're sliding and slipping a little. It's not like this perfect little pivot, but it does let you pivot around things. I feel like it's a feature very, very, very few people will use, even hardcore off-road people, because it's kind of like, oh, I shouldn't have been here. I've gotten myself into something that I cannot get out of. Wait, trail turn assist. So for those moments when you really get in over your head, this will save you. So those are the sort of the details on it. Driving it. So we took it. It was an all-day drive. We were up where the sun was not entirely up yet. They took us off out to the desert. They had us put on what looked like military, like combat helmets. I'm still at a loss. I don't know if you've seen the pictures. They weren't helmets you put on a racetrack. They were like the little half helmets you always see like our military guys wearing. Mm-hmm. And they were even like the army brownish, desert greenish kind of thing. That's what we had to wear. We're not even driving at speed. We're just like driving. I'm like, this is the strangest thing. Like, where exactly are you taking us for that I need this helmet? Like, what are you doing to me? So we wore those, and this was like a lead follow thing where they had us driving through terrain that genuinely was challenging. It wasn't a high speed portion. It was more like a handling, going through softer dirt, almost kind of silty sand in some places, packed dirt, loose rocks. And it's Johnson Valley where the rocks are all trying to kill you. Like they're all shaped with little pointy bits. Nothing's rounded.
Kind of like the moon.
Yeah, it's like the moon, only I don't need the suit. Yeah, I don't need the suit with the backpack.
And it wasn't in a simulator. It wasn't
in a simulator. It was actual. So had I gone down into the crater and not been able to handle it, it would have gone really poorly for me. But there were no craters, so I got off easy. So we did this drive. There were some spots where we required spotters. We had to kind of slow down because either it wasn't necessarily narrow, but it was just the way that the rocks are placed. You've got to make sure your tire's on this rock and the other tire's on that rock, and you're turning sharply here and turning back. So they had spotters with the weirdest spotting. And how normally guys, they're pointing at you to spot, and they've kind of got their hands over their head and they're tilting their hands like this left-right motion really widely so that you can see them. These guys have what look like a paint stick with like neon orange paint, and they're waving the little paint stick at you. I think I want hands. I don't like the paint stick. I was like, stop waving. Which way do you want me to go? Just point in that direction solidly and I'll go that way. So they had some tight spots to get through, and some spots where it genuinely was, even with them spotting and people doing exactly what they're supposed to do, a rock pivots ever so slightly under your wheels. Suddenly your car's moved an inch. Now you have to go backwards because now that inch is what you needed to get around those rocks. So there are a few moments where people had to, go back just a little bit and go back forward. So we did that on one section of the course. That was really good. And it did everything you would expect a Bronco to do. You had a sense of the only thing that's going to screw this up is me. My skills are going to not live up to what this car can actually do. So it takes you through everything. We get through this sort of lead follow section of things, and then we have a couple of other little things that we can do. One of them is we were crawling over rocks, and I guess we were where the King of the Hammers is, and there's just rocks. You guys, it doesn't look like any vehicle should be there, just rocks. It's the kind of thing you would come across and go, well, now we turn back. How do we go? And the Ford folks are like, up. So we crawl through these rocks, and this wasn't so much a lead follow. There were only a few vehicles because I think they took off. I want to say like they took something off, like the bumper or something, like they're because you know how the bumper caps you can sort of take off to make your bumpers little. I think they removed those. There was no like real vehicle modifications, just like don't break stuff modifications kind of thing, like appearance stuff. So they sent us up this, and it was serious. Like you were literally barely moving as you're crawling up these rocks. There was no portion of this section where you were not watching. You were watching guy A. When guy A was done pointing, he's like, there's your next guy, start watching him. There was never a moment where you weren't following someone's
chillaxing.
Never relaxing. There's no chillaxing. You were always following a man with a paint stick with a bright orange paint on the end of it. You were always following one of those guys. And And it was intense, but really cool, because you truly see like, okay, I could not have done that without my own on my own. I definitely needed a spotter. I think 99% of us would need a spotter to get through that, but it did it. It did it. And it never, you always, again, had a sense this vehicle can totally do this without a shadow of a doubt. This vehicle can do this. It's going to come down to me giving it the right amount of throttle, giving it the steering in the right direction, and following what the spotters are saying to me. So really not a surprise, but just like, yep, it does exactly what a Bronco should do. Then they took us to the more, what I think of, you kind of want to get a Raptor for. You want to drive fast. You want to drive fast, fast, fast in the sand, fasty, fast, fast. And we did that. They took us on a lap that was like, at first they took us on just very slow, like so slow. It's like, we're never going to get through this first lap. And it just to kind of show us where they had the course marked out in a couple of spots where they had little signs, kind of like a slow down. There was like a little wash or a dip coming that they're like, we appreciate you're going fast, but y'all have different skills here. And there's a little dip. And if you're going too fast, you're going to do some damage to yourself, not so much the truck or the Bronco. So they let us do that once following them. And then we did it once, and they had a really large gap between us. So it was truly the speed that you can take it. Now, they didn't want us going, 9 million miles an hour, because again, everybody doesn't have that skill level, and we're not all professional race car drivers here, but you could take it pretty fast, and it was fun. And even in the spots where there was, most of it was like sort of, it was either packed sand or they were just like sort of softer sand, but there were a couple spots where it got kind of silty. So you really, that's something where your tires just go right into that stuff. Mm-hmm. It went through no problem, even hitting some of the spots where it was a little bit more, not so much a jump, but you were getting, it was a little bit more like a something in the road that would really cause your wheels to all sort of come up at once. It handled beautifully. Like, you never had a sense that you lost control.
Totally drive it on the moon is what you're telling us.
You could drive it really. Ford, put this on the moon. I'd volunteer for that mission. Who wants to go to the moon and drive a Raptor with me? So it was.
Except you'd have to get rid of the pneumatic tires.
Well,
yeah, you got to get rid of a lot of stuff, actually. Okay. But it still sounds like fun.
You guys and your details, you ruin everything. We did this really fast lap.
It's been my role in life.
Then we did a section where they had, it was sort of like, think like a motocross, autocross thing, where you had a section where they just like floor it and then hit the brakes and come to a stop to see how well it stopped when it was just like going flat out. You had one that was just kind of like a slalom through cones that were relatively tight to see how it would handle that. And then that was more swooping turns, again, that you were following. So you could get a sense of sort of 3 different situations that you might encounter when you're driving off-road, and how does it handle really well. In fact, the stopping, not only is the stopping distance better than you would think on dirt, where your stopping distance isn't as great because you can slide a little bit more, but also just in terms of how heavy, it's not a light on its feet vehicle, and you jam the brakes on, it doesn't nosedive as much as you would expect. Sometimes you hit the brakes and like you literally feel like your whole body goes forward. You see the hood go down. You're like, ah. I mean, you do get a sense of that. You're slamming on the brakes, but it was much more controlled than you would think. And then going through little slaloms and everything, it was wonderful. And it was hot and dusty. And I've never felt so bad for the people outside, because we were wave 1 and I think they moved where they were standing for wave 2, because where they told us like, okay, floor it. And everybody, dust goes, they're right there. And I'm like, really? Cause you guys, he's like, don't worry about it. We're going to look like the desert by the end of the day. And seriously, I feel like you could have touched their faces and just like wiped sand off of them. The guys were so sandy. So that was our drive. And they put us, for that part of things, they put us, in a real helmet, like the helmet you wear on a racetrack, with a Hans device to make sure that we weren't going to, snap necks or hurt anything if you came down too hard. And there was, at the high speed thing, there was one little spot at the end. They had you stop, they waited, and then you could get it up to about, I think it was about 65, maybe 70 miles an hour. And when you hit that speed at the right spot, you got some air and you came down. So you genuinely got all 4 wheels off the ground, came back down again. And it did exactly what you want a vehicle like that to do. You've got all 4 wheels off and you feel it come back down, but you don't have that Dukes of Hazzard, like, oh, good God. And then come down and feel like everything in the entire car is falling apart. It's going to snap in half. Right. It felt like it was like your 4 wheels are in the air and poof. Yeah. So that was also impressive, because if you're driving fast in the desert, you are on occasion going to do that. So Bronco Raptor, ridiculously fun, has this unbelievably beefy look to it, just this huge behemoth of a vehicle. I don't, much like the F-150 Raptor, I don't know who needs this, but I understand every human on the planet wanting
I
this.
feel like of all the Raptors, the Bronco Raptor is the one that deserves to be a Raptor.
Why is that? Why does the Bronco deserve it and the F-150 doesn't?
Like the F-150, you're less likely to actually do anything. The people with the F-150 Raptor are just driving up and down the freeway near my house too quickly.
Hmm.
The Bronco Raptor feels like that's an off-road like monster. You know
Yes.
what? Let's make it crazy. There you go. Yeah. When
Okay,
you have like
fair.
you have a purpose-built off-road monster, you're like,
Yes.
yeah, let's go crazy.
Let's
The
do what we can.
F-150, the F-150 at the very bottom of it is a really great truck for a contractor.
Yeah.
And they just keep adding things onto
Stuffs.
yeah. So that's
Yeah. So that was the Bronco Raptor. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, if that's your thing. Also, they have this one color paint because I'm always about how things look. It's weirdest name. It's called Eruption Green. I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know what that is. Like it makes me
It's
think.
like
I'm
a
sorry.
pimple.
Well, it makes me think of the what's the movie where the girl's head spins around?
Carrie?
Exorcist.
Exorcist. That's it. And like the green
Even
pea soup
worse.
thing. Like I'm like Eruption Green. I don't. What is
That was
that? Eruption. I don't get it. So, but hey guys, horrible name, unbelievably beautiful color.
It is a great color.
It's a really great color. So love the color, hate the name.
I actually saw a Bronco Raptor on 94 the other day coming back from Detroit.
Oh, you did?
But unfortunately, it wasn't in Eruption Green. It was in
Boo earns.
it was Area 51, which is the
Is
sort
that-
of bluish gray.
Okay. Yeah.
Green, a slight hint of green there.
Yes.
But, the
Something.
alien color.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean this thing, it's 10 inches wider than a standard Bronco.
It's huge.
Yeah, those
huge, you
flares
guys.
are amazing.
The flares are, and there was one guy, he's like, oh, look at that. And I thought he was complaining about the tires. Like when he sent me the image like he clipped one of my images and went really in close. And I'm like, the tires are low because they aired out. That's not actually, or aired down. That's not a mistake. He's like, no, it's the fender flares. I'm like, oh, come on. It's supposed to look that way. What do you want? Something delicate that looks like a Mercedes? It's a Bronco Raptor. It's supposed to look that way.
Yeah, if you want that delicate look, go buy a G-Wagon.
Yeah, there you go. Go buy a G-Wagon, guy on Twitter.
But no two-door Raptor though, right? Just the
No,
four-door?
it's a 4-door only. It is exclusively a 4-door. Yeah. So, but after having a 2-door Bronco, I can't, like the regular Bronco, I'm a 4-door fan in this particular vehicle. I felt like the 2-door was really hard to get in and out of the back. And if you're taking this in the desert and racing, you're that hardcore, you're going to have stuff. And I feel like being able to access stuff more easily by just opening your back doors is going to be so much easier than the 2-door variant. So
And I'm sure there will be, some people that really want the absolute minimum breakover height that will get a 2-door Bronco and get all the Raptor parts and
Yes.
build their own 2-door Bronco Raptor.
they will try and Raptorize it. Raptorize. I mean, a word.
Someone will do that.
Raptorize. Yeah. Somebody will. And we'll see some picture of it and we'll all look at it and go, that was stupid, but that's also kind of amazing. Good on ya.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Cadillac Celistiq.
Celistiq. What a weird name.
Were you at the EV Day thing in 2020, Nicole? At the Design Dome, the GM Design Dome?
I don't believe I did that. No, I'm going to
Okay.
say no. 2020 is
Okay.
a long time ago, Sam. I think not.
Okay.
100 years ago.
They showed us, a clay model of the Celistiq back then, and they're slowly starting to tease out stuff. I think we're supposed to see it. I think it might be like mid-July. They're supposed to show it in its entirety. So this is going to be Cadillac's new flagship electric sedan, and it's going to be stupid expensive. Like I think something on the order of about $250,000. So it'll be the most
Fancy.
expensive GM production vehicle ever. And they're all going to be hand built, custom built for customers, and they're not even going to be building it in one of their regular assembly plants. They've set up a special facility at the GM Tech Center to build this, which tells you, that they're not actually planning on building very many of these, but they'll be special when they do show up.
I think it's gonna look dope.
Dope.
Yeah.
The Cadillac people have been doing some really great stuff with sedans. So
Yeah.
Is all the real picture we have is like a front fender?
Yeah.
There's a couple of other teaser images that, just showing
Around.
little details.
I mean, it's a
Here's a-
cool fender.
Yeah.
That's all I
lug-
got to judge.
the-
here's a lug nut. Here's a piece of
I
stitching.
mean, yeah.
If you can visualize this in your mind,
Yes.
big 4-door sedan, long hood, even though there's no, big engine under there. I don't know if they'll actually have a front trunk or not. But then the back end, the C pillars, very similar to the look on the Lyriq, the SUV. So these kind of big big wide pillars with the sort of concave cutout there that you see on the Lyriq.
Okay.
Obviously much lower, on a sort of a sedan profile. It's a sharp looking vehicle. I think it's going to be very interesting to see the reaction to it when it arrives. And of course, the Lyriq all three of us will be driving it this coming week. And
yeah.
That is this
soon.
week.
Yeah.
Whew, I should pack or something.
Yeah, I'm flying out tomorrow morning, in fact.
Before I get to the Lyriq, I have another Bronco drive because,
Oh, is this one for the, what is it? The
Everglades.
Everglades, yeah.
They got tickets to Swamp. They reached out to me the other day to get my shoe size for my waders.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Not that I'm a little nervous or anything, but okay then.
Luck with that. I'm sure Florida at the end of June.
No, it's not even Florida. We're going to Detroit. We're going up to Drummond Island in the UP because think about it. It's swampy
the Everglades,
and gross.
never mind.
Yeah. It's so swampy and gross, but no alligators. That's my theory.
True. Yes.
I could.
Absolutely right.
My chances of being something's dinner.
You will want the waders to avoid the leeches.
Oh, Sam, don't freak me out,
Leeches.
man. I hate you. I quit now. I'm gone. Table flip.
Hey, you picked this job.
I know. I said yes. I said I'd do it.
The leeches would be there whether I told you about it or not.
Yuck. I'm going to be so afraid to touch anything now. I'm going to have those waders pulled up like as far up my body as humanly possible to avoid touching anything.
Okay. Anyway, this week, last June, almost a year ago, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration issued an order to all automakers and developers of automated driving systems to start submitting data about any crashes that happened while their systems are active. And this week, they finally released at least some of the first batch of data that they collected over the first 11 months of this program. There was there's like 390 some crashes that occurred with these vehicles with level 2 and above systems. Out of that, 273 came from one company. I bet you can't guess who it was.
Saab.
Yes.
That was my guess
too,
Robbie.
Oh, Saab. Why?
Well, they haven't done any updates since 2010, so the software needs some. No.
Yeah.
No, it was Tesla. With autopilot. One of, I don't know if either of you, took any time to actually look through the data, but there's a lot of information that they collected, such as, what system was on there, where there was damage on the vehicle, and there were descriptions for the crashes. But for some reason that I think is bogus, the NHTSA allowed manufacturers to tag certain information as company business or confidential business information, and some stuff that that they want to keep confidential, like which version of software, I'm fine with that. That's not a big deal. But the descriptions of the crashes, what actually happened, most manufacturers put that stuff in there, no problem at all. Tesla, all 273 crashes involving Tesla vehicles, the descriptions were redacted. So we couldn't see what actually happened in any of these incidents. NHTSA has the data, but they didn't release it publicly.
Oh, but the public doesn't.
Yeah. And I think that's BS.
Cool.
I think we should get to see that because, strangely,
especially if you're trained when you release beta onto the public should know like what that beta is doing to the public roads.
Absolutely. And the second highest number of crashes, strangely enough, were from Honda, who
really
I would argue doesn't even have a level 2 system.
Well, they have a level 2 system
in
a way
not
that
really. because
in the way that you just, well, we can call it level 2.
yeah, but they don't even really market it as such. Like a level 2 system would be a system where there's one common control system that is controlling steering, braking, and acceleration. So one set of software is doing that. Honda doesn't do that. Honda has adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist on their vehicles, but they're separate systems. They don't really coordinate with each other. And
yeah, but the end of the day, that's still for the average person. I mean, when you try to drill down to like, well, how the software is working, that doesn't matter to the average person.
That's true.
If it's
That's
5
true.
different pieces of software or 2,
Right.
it's still, you still have to say level 2 because it does the thing that the SAE's level 2 says.
Yeah. At any rate, there were 90 crashes involving various Honda vehicles. However, I read through the descriptions of all of them. None of them actually had anything to do with because what NHTSA was looking for was any crashes where the system was active up to 30 seconds prior to impact. 30 seconds. And
okay.
So reading through the descriptions of all the Honda crashes, it was all, car was struck by another vehicle that ran a stop sign.
Okay.
So not one of the Honda crashes was actually related to the fact that adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist was turned on.
But they would just happen to be on
while
there was a collision.
Right.
It wasn't something that really was the system's fault.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
It's like when all the Waymos people kept running into the back of the Waymo.
Exactly.
And they had a big article, and it's like the Waymo didn't do anything wrong. Someone just ran into the back of it, like they did, like cars do all the time.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, and the Waymo vehicle, the Waymo crashes. I think there was about I think it was close to 100 involving Waymo vehicles, and some of those were redacted. The ones that weren't redacted were the ones where, vehicle ran into the back of the Waymo. Another vehicle ran into the back of the Waymo. So what I want to see is the ones that they redacted, because those are probably the ones where, the Waymo
something interesting happened. Yeah. Something worth going, what went wrong here?
Yeah. So hopefully in the future, we'll be getting more of that data. I think this is an interesting first start, and I'm glad to see that they're finally collecting this data.
At least they're doing something.
Yeah. And, at least regulators now are getting some information about how these systems are actually working, or in some cases not functioning. There were 2 crashes involving Cadillacs with Super Cruise. Both of those, again, not really the fault of the system. One, the driver lifted up his leg for some reason, hit the steering wheel, and caused the system to disengage, and it ran sideways into the median on the highway.
Right.
So still totally like a driver error.
Yeah, it was a driver error thing. And the other one was something else where the driver, it was a deer. There was a deer on the road, and the driver slammed on the brakes, which disengaged the system, and he hit the deer that ran out. And, so the system had been active during 30 seconds prior to the impact with the deer.
So it counts.
So it counts.
Yeah.
But no real accidents caused by Super Cruise itself, really.
Yeah.
I like Super Cruise too. That's my favorite of the bunch.
Yep. All right. Sony and Honda announced this week that they've finalized their joint venture agreement.
I'm just happy that Sony's doing something, because it's just like press. It's like the last 2 or 3 years of then like what we're thinking about doing. Now we're going to investigate doing. Now we're going to think about investigate doing. It's like having a meeting to have a meeting about a thing they need to do. That's what Sony's like whole thing has been all the way up to this. So finally. And then I think there was one like before this where Sony and Honda like, hey, we're thinking about doing a thing.
Yeah, well, they did a memorandum of understanding that they were going to investigate a JV.
Yeah.
Now it's official.
Now it's official.
Officially.
Thank God. Hey, you know what? We actually are doing something.
But the question is, does Sony really need to get into the car business?
Sure they do.
Why not? If Samsung,
why the heck not?
You see Samsung, you see LG, and there's like, oh man, those are big electronics companies. We should be.
But they're suppliers. They supply stuff to the auto industry.
Yeah,
they're not.
Maybe this is where Sony wants to jump in. This is their chance. They got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
you got to start with a company who made an awesome car that it won't sell in the United States. Honda E.
So the joint venture is supposed to start production of vehicles in 2025. We'll see.
What year is it now? 2022.
Yeah.
Honda still has a deal with GM.
Yep, those are coming in 24. The Honda Prologue and a yet to be named Acura electric crossover.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah, well, okay, sure, fine.
Okay.
If you say so, whatevs.
I just want bring the Honda E over. Just change the battery. The battery technology is better. You probably get like 150 out of it. Drop it in my front yard. I'll give you all the money I have.
Wow. Okay, there.
It's not a lot, okay? A reminder to everyone listening. I'm a writer.
It's a small car, so it should be cheap, right?
Yeah. It's not a large pile of money, people, but it will be a small pile of money.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm saving the ultra. I just found the ultra soft tissues that come with when I flew on Delta a while back. I'm like, I should save these in case I need to blow my nose. So I'm not exactly swimming in cash.
That pile of money, not large. No.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you've heard the old line about how do you make a small fortune in racing? You start with a large fortune.
Large fortune.
Yeah. I think the same thing is largely true of being an auto journalist.
Yes. How do you? I warned my wife. That's all I'm saying. I'm like, I'm going to be a writer. I'm not going to make a lot of money. She's like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, okay.
All right. Well, speaking of which, let's jump into our Q&A. Let's see. Adam J asked, you often talk about cars that you have for an entire week to test and about their fuel economy. So I was wondering who foots the bill for all that gas. I certainly hope Ford was footing the bill for the Navigator sim recently tested.
Well, they arrive with a full tank of gas.
So you got that.
You get a full tank of gas and you arrive. If you don't blow through the whole full tank of gas, then thanks Ford for filling it up. If you do go through the full tank of gas, then you fill it up with however much gas you need. So it does come full, but you're responsible for filling it up if you have a longer drive that requires additional fill-ups.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb, I think, for most people is, and not everyone lives up to this, but the rule of thumb is give it back with at least half a tank of gas in it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not going to give someone. Here's the car back with nothing, no gas in it.
It's on empty. Gas station's just down the road over here. Good luck.
Exactly. Good
hopefully,
luck.
Hopefully you got enough fumes to get you there.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the EVs. I always try to make sure they have like at least 100 miles of range, because I'm about 20 miles from where they take the cars back. But if they're taking that vehicle to another place that's further out or whatever, I want them. Yeah, I give them like 100 miles of range at least.
Right.
Before they pick up the car.
Yeah, I usually try to give it back, with almost at least a full charge or close to it, depending on how much time I have between when I last drove it and when they're picking it up. And the electricity is a lot cheaper, so that's.
Charging the car is like nothing compared to getting gas.
And I can do that at home. I don't have to take it to a gas station.
Right.
And
it is no effort.
For some stuff, like for my day job, if I'm driving the car to go to a meeting or some event for my day job, then in that case, I'm I'm getting reimbursed by my employer for that fuel. So, it's not a big deal to put gas in there.
Brag.
I know, whatever, Robbie. Like, he can just stop now.
Yeah, we just pay for it.
All right. The rest of the questions we have are all related to the electric trucks. So we'll try and go through these relatively quickly. Adam Jordison asked, please pull stuff with it and find places to charge. I want one of these so bad, but my fear is charging with a trailer attached. Also, what does the back seat look like with 3 adults? How is the spacing and comfort? To be honest, I've been waiting for a solid 3-row family mover that is electric or a good PHEV to replace our van. Not interested in making a design statement, and this truck is the closest thing in production right now. Well, I'll answer the second part of that first. Go buy a Chrysler Pacifica hybrid, plug-in hybrid.
Yeah.
Solid 3-row.
3 rows, lots of room.
Not a design statement, not sexy, but lots of room.
Yeah.
32, 33 miles of electric range. And even then, when you're running as a hybrid, it's still pretty fuel efficient.
And for a family, it has all the family stuff, tons of room, good price.
Minivans are the best family haulers.
It's a great, if you got a family, you're just looking for PHEV, there's your answer right there, Pacifica.
Yeah.
My band is playing a show up over what the hell is it? Independence Day weekend, and we're taking our dogs, plus we're taking the drum set, and we're taking, you know what I'm renting? Minivan.
There you go.
There you go.
Always just
Perfect.
get a minivan.
As for the back seat, the F-150 is definitely roomier than the Rivian. It's wider, it's longer. You can put three guys my size, three broad-shouldered adult males back there in the back seat. They'll have tons and tons of leg room, tons of headroom, and plenty of shoulder room side by side in that back seat. The Rivian, for at least for two adults, or three slimmer people, because it is narrower, and you won't have kind of limousine style legroom in the back seat, but it's still solid. You'll have plenty of room for at least 2.5 adults in the back seat of the Rivian. Charging with a trailer is often a challenge. They're starting to do more. At least Electrify America is starting to do more charging locations that have pull-through charger setups rather than like just parking spots that you pull into and plug in, so you don't have to block other chargers. Unfortunately the ones like here in the northern part of Michigan that I've been to don't have that configuration yet, so you might end up having to block something or disconnect the trailer while you're charging. The station I stopped at near Kalamazoo, Michigan, when I went to Wisconsin a few weeks ago, their setup is actually, it's not officially pull through, but they're configured so you can, and also the one in Milwaukee, you could actually pull in there with the truck with the trailer hooked up. You will be blocking one or the other chargers for a while, but you can get through there without disconnecting your trailer. So they're getting better at configuring charging locations like that, but it's still going to be a problem for a while. Maki Vlog asks, how's Blue Cruise? How quiet is it on the highway and back roads? How does the rear suspension compare to the ICE version? The Blue Cruise, we talked about before, but it works fine. It's not as good as Super Cruise. It's better than what's offered by Rivian. It is amazingly quiet on the highway and back roads, much more so than the Rivian. And then the rear suspension, that independent rear suspension, is way smoother than what you'll get on any other F-150. And because of the 50-50 weight distribution, it doesn't have the tendency to bounce when you hit bumps. So it feels much more supple. And even though the Rivian has air springs, the Ford was actually a smoother ride over rough pavement, which I found surprising. Clinton Casatin or Cacatin, I'm not sorry if I mispronounced that.
Casatin. I'm going Casatin.
Okay.
I don't know. Clinton, let us know how badly we're mangling your name.
Okay. Anyway, still confused about range in a blackout situation. If you're powering a house but have to go places, can you extend the range with a generator? Just looking at worst case scenarios with a big battery vehicle. So here's the deal. If you have the extended range battery, it's got 131 kilowatt hours of capacity in it. Average American household, normal use, uses about 29 kilowatt hours a day. So 3 days, you're going to use about 90 kilowatt hours. That's going to leave you close to 40 kilowatt hours. So you're going to have about 30% of your battery left after 3 days, assuming you haven't done any throttling of your electrical load in your house. If you start turning stuff off in your house so you're not using as much electricity, Ford says you can go up to 10 days, which is, I think, realistic. Can you extend the range of the truck with a generator? Yeah, you can certainly do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got a generator, why not just plug that into your house? I think what you'll probably want to do is, run, you can set a minimum state of charge that you want it to go down to in the truck. So like 30, 40%, whatever level, depending on how far you might need to go to get somewhere else to get power to charge it back up. So, if there's, say a DC fast charger that's working, that's 20 miles away from you, if you tell it to save 35, 40% of your charge, you'll have more than enough to, unplug from your house for an hour or so, go plug it in, charge it up, come back, and then plug your house back into your truck and keep on going. That's kind of the way I'd go. Sean Aaron asks, I'd like to know how it goes off-road. Those highway tires, chin spoiler, and running boards seem to really restrict what it can do. Well, you drove it off-road in Texas. Nicole, what'd you think?
I thought it was good off-road. It wasn't a long course that we got to do, but we did get to do some off-road driving. I think it's probably going to do more than you expect. I feel like it's very much like the regular F-150. Do you know what I mean? Like it does, the difference is, yeah, sure, it's an EV underneath all that, but it does all the F-150 things you expect. So if you're taking a regular F-150 off-road, similarly equipped, you're going to find that it behaves similarly. And I think that's actually a really good thing, because you kind of don't want every EV to be like, oh, this is totally different because it's an EV. No, you kind of want it to do what it did when it wasn't an EV. In the case of a truck, very much so. And I feel like it was, I had no issues with it off-road. There was a sort of like, we did a, driving up and down hills and a little bit of rockiness. We weren't crawling over stuff like I did in a Bronco, but like there was a good amount of, if you were driving on some pretty rugged terrain, it could do it. And then there was a little high speed lap, like tiny, enough you got up to speed, went around a corner and you were done. But that was fun and it handled well. And that was like in the dirt. So I think that off-road, I didn't have issues with it. I think, you're right. The running boards, if you're going to do some like crazy rock crawling and stuff, those aren't going to work out well. But for the majority of folks, and you can modify stuff. If you're going to, want to do something a little bit more aggressive, then you might want to do some modifications to make it an aggressive off-road vehicle. That it is not, but it lives up to the expectation of what you would think an F-150 could typically do if you're going to take it off-road.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to compete with, a Tremor or a Raptor version of the F-150.
Right.
But, for any, comparable to what you would get for, a similar trim level, like an XLT, a Lariat, or a Platinum, it'll do what those can do. And it does have a locking rear diff. So that's, that's good. You don't get the running boards on like the XLT, I think, or the Lariat. So, I mean, if that's what you want to do, you might want to go with one of those. The Platinum is really the on-road truck. But the types of things that most people are going to use an F-150 off-road for, like, working on the farm, yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, going across a field on a farm, it'll handle that fine. That won't be a problem at all. Gupta AJ asks, can I buy it? Absolutely. All depends how much you want to spend. If you
how long you want to wait?
Well, I mean, you can get it now if you want to pay the markups.
Yeah.
If you're patient, yes, you can buy it. Or, if you're willing to spend the money, you can buy it. So there's that. Brian Shields asks, cost to charge from full versus gas prices. So the F-150, the gas F-150s, you can get them with four different gas tank sizes, 23, 26 gallons, or 36 gallons. And the hybrid comes with a 30-gallon tank for some reason. And at current Michigan gas prices, and this is for regular, not premium, that'll cost you anywhere from $123 to $190 to fill the tank in an F-150, depending on what tank size you've got. The charging it up, doing a full charge from 0 to 100%, charging at home, again, Michigan electricity prices are actually close to the national average, about 12 cents a kilowatt hour. It'll cost you about $16. And if you're charging at an EA station,
$16
without paying the $4 a month for the Plan Plus, where you get the discount, so you're paying 43 cents a kilowatt hour, $56. So it's even though you've got about let's see, with the 36-gallon tank, you're going to have about 700 miles of range, $190. With you're going to have about 300 with the Lightning, $56. So if you double that, to get the same range, still, about $100. So it's going to at the most expensive DC fast charging, it's still going to cost you half as much for the same amount of driving range. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot cheaper. And the same thing, all the same things are true for the Rivian, because it's got roughly the same size battery and similar range. Coach Cabrera, charging times, ride quality, infotainment system, seat comfort. Thank you. Charging times, DC fast charging at 150 kilowatts. It'll go 10 to 80% in about 45 minutes. If you have the extended range trucks come bundled with the 80 amp charger, the Pro Charge Station Pro. It'll charge that fully, do a full charge from 0 to 100 overnight in about a little over 8 hours. Most of the time, you're not going to be doing a full charge. Ride quality, as I said, much better than the gas truck and better than the Rivian. Infotainment system, if you like Sync 4, it's great. I'm fine with it. Works well. It's easy to use, reasonably responsive. Seat comfort. The seats are comfortable on the Platinum. You get massaging seats. They're not quite as sophisticated as the massaging seats in the Navigator, but they'll do. The seats, in typical truck fashion, are a little wider and they feel a little flatter. So it's, not sports car seats. The seats in the Rivian are definitely a little narrower, give you a little more lateral support for that sporty driving. But no complaints after many hours of driving both of these trucks. Harry Tiffany JV or IV, or is that the fourth? I don't know.
The fourth.
Yeah, probably the fourth. How intuitive is the software? Where can you charge? How long does charging take at home? I just mentioned that. Is the dash clean or cluttered? The Rivian dash is very clean, almost to a fault, as I mentioned. No, could use a few more buttons and switches.
A little less clean, please.
Yeah, but the Rivian, one thing I didn't mention, even though the Rivian is very minimalist, it does feel much more premium than a typical Tesla. Really nice wood trim and the other materials. It's vegan leather, but it looks very premium. It looks like something that would be more of a competitor to a Range Rover than what you get with a Tesla. The software, I actually preferred the Ford software. The Rivian software is pretty. It's got nice graphics, but not always as responsive. And the touch targets are sometimes often smaller, so a little bit more challenging to use and to find what you're looking for. And then charging, anywhere where there's a CCS charger or a 1772 home charger. Let's see. Alan Bayless, which version? Pro, Platinum, and standard battery size and rear wheels drive? So there's no rear wheel drive for either of these. They're all 4-wheel drive. They all come standard with all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. I had the Platinum and did not drive the standard battery this time. Did drive it in Texas. What range you see in real world environments? I didn't do a full, to depleted range test, but based on the 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour, I was getting, it should actually probably do a little better than the label, which is about somewhere around 320 miles, 315 to 320 miles for the Lightning, and similar for the Rivian. Off-road, we'd already talked about. You get to try out Blue Cruise. Yep, we talked about that too. Ranig asks, towing long-range experience, including charging along the way. We talked about that previously.
I'm reading the next one. Sorry.
Okay. Kev Bick, will you make my payments? No.
No.
We already talked about we're riders.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember the very small pile of money, Kev? Just so you remember.
Felonious Musk asks, how does it compare to driving Tesla's superior Cybertruck?
We don't know if it's superior because no one's driven it.
Yeah. If and when it ever exists, we'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll hold that question. Just stick it in a file, Sam, and we'll go back to it.
Put that on the shelf. Come back to it in about 3 years.
Yeah.
Jay Truist, why can't we get an F-150 Lightning Pro model with an extended battery? Actually, you can. You can't configure it through Ford.com, but they do offer it through Ford Pro, through the commercial sales division. So commercial customers can buy the Lightning Pro with the extended battery, and that one is probably your best value, because it's like 10 grand extra for the extended battery. So you're looking at $50,000 for Lightning Pro with the extended range battery, and you still get lots of stuff in there that I think makes it probably a really good value. But you have to go to a Ford Pro dealer to get that and order it through them rather than through the standard commercial retail channels. From the vegening, how's the front visibility? Same as any other truck.
I know.
You're up high, the hood's long. Anybody standing in front of you, you're probably not going to see them. And this, this is an issue with any big truck or SUV, and this is really true for both.
Mostly trucks, though, at this point, because the SUVs still have some sort of design where there's a little bit of an angle. The trucks are just a flat square now.
If you're talking a full size, like an Expedition or a Tahoe.
That Escalade I drove, that was big.
Yeah.
It depends on the SUV, I think.
Yeah.
The lack of visibility still comes down to just its design decision.
But one thing I do like about the Ford pickups is when you look at the side windows, they dip down in the front near the mirrors, so you actually get better visibility. So you get lower belt line up from the front. So if you're looking to the front quarters, you can see more in close to you as you're maneuvering, and so it's actually a lot easier to maneuver with those. Charging port, USB charging ports. There's 8 in the F-150, 2 in the front, and then 6 inside the cabin. And then I think there's only 2 or 3 in the Rivian. How's the handling like in urban city settings? It's a big truck. It's both of them are, even though the Rivian's smaller, it's still challenging to maneuver them in tight spaces. If you're
like any big truck.
Yeah, it's no different. It behaves just like any other truck. Better yet, how do people look at you when they see it's electric and you don't have to pay for gas? More so with the Rivian, that people notice the Rivian because its styling is different. The F-150, most people didn't even notice that it was a Lightning, because it looks so much like a standard F-150. Fahim Mazhari, when is the Explorer electric launching? 2024 is what I've been told. We'll probably see it sometime next year. Chris Chen, can you lift it? I'm not quite as strong as I used to be when I was younger. So no.
If you'd asked 5 years ago, it'd been like, yeah, totally.
Robbie can probably do it. But
Robbie can do it.
Yeah.
He's got the height, so he's got that leverage.
Yeah. No, I'm assuming it's only a matter of time before somebody offers a lift kit. I would be shocked if at the SEMA show this fall, if we don't see some customized Lightnings with lift kits and assorted other stuff. How's range affected when you use things like the AC or when you use the outlets in the bed for tools or other items? I think a lot of customers would appreciate a more real-world range estimate. Well, the 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour I got with both of these was, fairly warm weather or hot weather. We got a day when it got up to like 96 degrees, so I was using the air conditioning, and that, so that was, I was getting equivalent of over EPA label efficiency with even with the AC on. With the AC off, I think I was getting like 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So you're going to get some degradation. Same thing when you're using the Pro Power system. It's going to consume some battery, but it depends on what you're using. What tools you're using. You get a maximum of 9.6 kilowatts output there. So if you're using the full output of 9.6 kilowatts, for an 8-hour workday, you're looking at what's 8 times 10, 80 kilowatt hours that you might potentially consume. You're gonna have a hard time using all of that power. So, that might be the equivalent of a couple hundred miles of range. Love to see how long it takes to charge a Tesla enough to go another 50 miles or so. Roadside assistance to another EV is a great feature. I think 9.6 kilowatts, you could, or let's see, the 240 volt outlet is only 30 amps, which is what 30 times 240.
I can hear the calculator doing the math.
7 kilowatts, 7.2 kilowatts. So you're probably gonna be able to put about 50 miles on, in maybe a little over an hour with that from the Lightning. And I'm sure that we will see, some, AAA and other roadside assistance companies using these things to provide assistance to EVs that are stranded. And finally, the Sphinx, does it explode randomly like a Tesla, burning you to death? It did not during the week that I had it. We'll have to wait and see.
There you go.
I'm not aware of any Ford EVs exploding randomly to date, but anything can happen. All right, and I think that's enough for today.
Okay. He's like, I'm done. That's
done.
it.
I'm done.
I've had it. Done with your questions, people.
Yay.
Anything else you two want to add?
No, that's it.
No.
All right. Then we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.